Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is the art of creating mental health wealth. And isn't this something that we all need now? Welcoming my co-host and friend, JENETTA Barry, and the Epiphany Process to talk more in detail about this and welcome our guest. Hello, JENETTA.
Hey, Dr. JACALYN. Great to see you again. Wonderful to be here.
It's great to see you again as well. Please let our audience know where you're joining us from today, as you've been on the move traveling quite a bit.
I have. I'm actually in darkest Africa again, and I'm in the middle of the Great Rift Valley of Kenya by a lake known as Lake Naivasha that has hippopotamus in the lake, and lying in bed last night I could hear hyena. So really very exotic and really rather special. I wake up in the morning at the moment going, oh my gosh, it's so lovely to be here.
It sounds like something out of a movie or out of an incredible book. Can only imagine.
It really is, and I can't wait for you, Dr. JACALYN, and my special guest, who's a very special friend of mine, to get out here and visit me when we're here, because this is now our Africa home, as well as our home in UK and England in Oxford. So yeah, can't wait for everybody to experience that piece of out of a movie.
JENETTA, when you think about the two places where you reside, what would you say are some of the key takeaways you have in terms of your mental health? How do you feel in each location? Is there any difference?
There is. I mean, fortunately, I've grown up in this area and in this part of the world, so I quite easily adapt when I get back. Whereas probably for my partner, Andy, it's a bit different for him. But it's such a beautiful place. But it definitely helps with my mental health, because I do battle with the English weather. And as much as I step forward and go, these are the advantages of being in UK, and there are many, I can give you an equally as long list of the advantages of being here, but there are disadvantages too. So it's being able to juggle the both, and when you're feeling overwhelmed, A, allow it, and then B, do something about it when you've allowed it for long enough.
Great points. Thank you so much for sharing that. And JENETTA, I'm going to spotlight you for people who are joining us for the first time, whether they're listening on the radio or they're watching on TV or they're getting it later as a podcast. Please tell us a little bit about your background and the Epiphany Process, and then I'll have you introduce our guest for today.
Thank you, Dr. JACALYN. Okay, so, I'm actually here because 17 years ago, I lost my 16-year-old daughter, Jenny, to suicide after she and I had an enormous argument. It escalated out of all control. And if I look back on it, a lot of that came from, I mean, it's a two-way street when you have an argument. It's not just one way. A lot of it came back from knee-jerk reactions, from things that happened in my childhood. So I didn't handle what was happening around me as ably as I could. And you can imagine that everything went to ground zero in that time. And I almost ended my life 3 times after Jenny died. And it took a prophetic moment where I realized that I still had choice and that I needed to research and study to not live a life of hell on earth for the rest of my life. Emotionally, it was like an emotional prison sentence in a deep, dark, black hole. And I just knew I could not do that for the rest of my life. And leaving the planet wasn't what I really wanted to do. And so I started researching and studying, and I had to walk the walk and talk the talk to make that happen. And at the same time, I started helping others in similar situations, and it's grown in the last 14, 15 years. I've helped thousands of people all over the world online. I've done more online than anything else. And I've helped people who've been in terrorist attacks. I've helped young people who are self-harming, can't get out of bed, can't wash, can't eat. They're all enjoying successful careers now and able to socialize, which they couldn't do before. And even down to people with day-to-day challenges. So I've called this process the epiphany process, and never look back with it. And the other part that's come out of this, which is really very close to my heart, we realized that Jenny had died on World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October, coincidentally. And from that, we have created World Jenny's Day, where we use theatre and the arts to normalize and soften conversations that have really been given too much charge. Conversations are around feeling compromised and overwhelmed and depressed and suicidal. And when you're in your creative genius, either presenting to people from that creative genius place or inspiring those people who are feeling compromised to express themselves from that creative place, new powerful conversations come about. And we're just about to go into the third World Jenny's Day using these skills, these creative, theatrical and art skills. And I'm so inspired to say we are using the USA Global TV platform this year to expand even further. So that's huge news. So it's been an amazing journey. It's been an amazing, difficult journey, but really I can say I'm here because of my greatest life test. I'm living my life purpose because of that great life test.
JENETTA, thank you so much. I was thinking about you this morning when I was getting ready, and how each time we do this show, you share part of your experience that carries through to your life today. It's not like you just erase it and say, oh, well, that happened. It's with you every day in your family. And I just commend you so much for your courage and your transparency to help other people.
Oh, thank you, Dr. JACALYN. And in actual fact, this brings us on to our amazingly special guest today, because Elliott, Kay, and I have had quite a journey together over the last 3 years. And to give you a bit of background on Elliott, for the last 10 years, Elliott's worked with business owners and entrepreneurs, MDs, and investors in order to help them stand out when they're delivering talks and speeches or pitching or looking to win business through delivering speaking. And that's where I stepped in with Elliott 3 years ago, because his reputation preceded him. I was in London, and I just knew that because this is such a difficult subject, often it used to trip me up as to how I could express myself without feeling I might be judged, or that I might be whatever it is I might be. It's an easy place to judge yourself on such a charged subject. And Elliott's unique and effective structures and his impactful delivery, training, and teaching, he gives a language that lands, and it helps one to hone your messaging, perfect your story, and enable you to win more business. And for me, my aha moment was when I did I did my basic speech with him, whatever it is, whether I'm standing in front of people or sitting today, talking on TV and radio, or wherever it is. I've got my basic signature speech that Elliott helped me to structure and fine hone. And what's so genius about it is that I can take bits of it appropriate to A, how long I've got to speak, and B, where I am. And I've not looked back. And the other thing with Elliott that I have to share before I finish the accolades on this amazing man is that whilst I was learning all this and doing my signature talk with Elliott, part of the beginning, we were in London in real time, in hotels, working this all out with other special people. And then lockdown happened. In fact, I think we all had dinner the night before lockdown in London, and that was it. And we all stepped into kind of like a brotherhood and sisterhood. Every single day we agreed we would meet up on Zoom to keep each other going in this. It was literally like being under house arrest in UK for months and months and months and months. And Elliott and a group of us who were all doing our signature talks met daily. And I can say that not only did that bring us very close as a team, it got us to know each other in very precious ways, and it certainly helped my signature talk that much more. And you know, to lead you on, Elliott's spoken globally at conferences, events, in front of teams, leaders, and managers on how to pitch and win new business. And as well as speaking, Elliott's worked with some of the leading companies and corporations and entrepreneurs on customer service, how to get into the media, and how to successfully pitch on top-rated television programs such as Dragon's Den. Now, for those of you who are in US, that's Shark Tank, and also MasterChef, the professionals. And so today, Elliott's going to discuss with us how to speak and get paid, not just speak and nothing happens. So without much ado, more ado, ladies and gentlemen, Elliott Kay.
Hi, Elliott. Welcome. It's so nice to have you. And what a beautiful introduction, Janetta.
Oh, well, it's well deserved.
Elliott, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Elliott.
I knew that. I was just testing you to see if you were paying attention. I was saying, what an amazing introduction, and thank you for that. And now I have to deliver, I suppose. That's the only problem with such an introduction.
Elliott, my first question for you is, so many people are interested in speaking. I have people on this platform all the time. Oh, I'm a speaker, but I can't get any work, or I need to, work on my skills. And then they become fearful and they don't move forward. Have you seen this type of behavior with people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of that happens because people dial into the dream of being a speaker. I want to be a speaker. I want to be a speaker. I really want to make an impact, which is fantastic. But the challenge with that is that people underestimate the amount of work that goes in to being a speaker. Gone are the days where you announce you're a speaker and you'll get booked and get paid thousands of dollars or pounds or euros or whatever currency just for the sake of, because you called yourself a speaker. Now the level of expectation to being a speaker has to be invested in, has to be developed. And you have to have the basics toolkit, which is what will get you those paid speaking gigs. You've got to know where you are on the journey, right? Where are you? Are you someone that's discovered that you have something to share and therefore you want to speak because you want to share your truth? Fantastic. That doesn't necessarily mean that people will want to pay you for that, but that doesn't mean there isn't value in that. Are you already established? You have an expertise that you can share that's worth paying for? Great. Then it's about the packaging. And if you're established and you have a following, you have a legacy, so to speak, you have a tribe, then again, it's just about positioning and packaging. But a lot of people think just because they've decided to speak, then therefore they'll get that paid speaking gig. And that's where people fall short, I feel, Dr. JACALYN and JENETTA.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
Elliott,
that explanation.
I wanted to ask you, where would you say things have changed since COVID? Would you say what you were saying just now, has it changed to this way? What does one have to do differently post-COVID?
That's a really good question. What shifted, of course, is the acceleration of use of technology. What shifted is the coming down of geographical borders. So I think for you to stand out and be more giraffe, one of my taglines, and be a paid speaker in the current environment is you have to be a multi-level speaker, i.e. you have to be just as good on camera as a speaker, just as engaging, just as energetic. Now, energetic doesn't mean loud, by the way, but you have to be exactly the same on camera as you would be on stage. And that's where a lot of speakers have really stumbled or struggled, because they haven't adapted, or they're confined, or they feel restricted by the square that they're put in. But there's so many different ways that you can still be enrolling and engaging. And for you to kind of stand out in this space, being a multi-leveled speaker, i.e. online, offline, having the same energy, the same impact, being technology savvy while being a speaker is a must now. You know, you've got to be technologically savvy as a speaker, and you've got to be a marketeer as a speaker, because otherwise you will get left behind. And expecting people to knock on your door and go, here's a suitcase full of cash, will you be our speaker? That's not going to happen. And if you're not savvy, and if you're not with technology, then other speakers are. And then so they're the ones that are going to win the business. So that's what's really shifted in the last 2 years, the acceleration of technology, the need to have extra skill set and understanding. You know, you've got to have the basics right in order to get your foot through the door. So that's what changed.
Thank you, Elliott. Is there an advantage to starting your speaking career online as opposed to in person? I know you have to have the skill set to do both, but if you started this way, is that an advantage at all?
I'm not sure if there's an advantage, to be completely honest. I think that's one way you can do it. It's cost effective. You don't have to travel. I mean, something to remember is people pay for your expertise, right? They don't pay necessarily for your physical presence, although there's extra cash if you do that, because there's time, there's travel, there's expenses. I think the only reason you would do it from home, excuse me, is because you can't travel, or you won't travel, or there's a reason why you're restricted. People are hungry for that connection now. People want physical. They want you to be in the room. That's shifted back again because people have so much of screen time in the last 2 years. We might be slightly burnt out from that. So for me, I don't think there's an advantage, but there's not a disadvantage either. It's a choice. And if you want to start as a virtual speaker, you can land more gigs without a doubt, especially if you're happy to do unpaid. You can do geographical much easier. I remember doing I did 3 time zones in one day when you do virtual, because I did, I think I did US a certain time, and then I was in Pakistan, and then I was back to the UK. So there's that advantage. But I don't think as a speaker, there's much of an advantage or a disadvantage, to be honest.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Just as a follow-up question, and then I'll go over to JENETTA. When I think back to my corporate career, we had national sales meetings. We always had people coming in and presenting something. And the speakers who were really spot on, they did certain things that stand out. And the people who were not so great, they did certain things that stand out as well. What can you share with our audience about this?
Yeah, so the people that did great probably operated to 3 key ingredients. So they had a structure that allowed them to express themselves. They used the language that, JENETTA talked about, language that lands. So they were completely tuned into who the audience was, and adapted the language to ensure that it encompasses everybody in the room versus alienates a certain section. So you got structure, you got language, And then the last thing is they were very good at delivering. So they invested in their skill set of delivery. What I find tends to happen a lot with speakers who want to get paid is they're often really could be very good with delivery, but lack structure and don't use the right language. Or they don't use the right language, even though they have a structure, and they might be strong with delivery. What's really important is to have all three. Because if you're not speaking the language that I can connect with, you're going to lose me. If you're not delivered in a way that's impactful and engaging in a way that will elevate me, emotively pull me in, you're going to lose me. And then if you're just making it up, or you're just kind of hoping you'll land somewhere because you don't have the structure, again, you'll lose me. It's disrespectful for the audience. So all of those three key ingredients are really, really important. And something they probably all did, the ones that got you, is they understand the psychology of presenting, right? They understand there's a whole psychology behind presenting. They understand how to enter the person's world. They understand how to pull them with you on this journey. And I think that is key. And if you want to get paid, you really got to look at the three key ingredients and understand that the whole psychology of presenting, the whole psychology of speaking, there's a whole world to it. And if you're only focusing on one angle, you're going to alienate a huge, huge part of your audience, or you'll lose them very quickly. Just because you might be an expert doesn't mean you're an expert when you present it, because the communication of expertise is key, and knowing the right language to use to encompass your audience is key. Using the structure that allows you to express yourself is key, and delivering in a way that's engaging, that's enrolling, that's emotive, that's entertaining, that is key. And that's why a lot of people get the small bucks and very few get the big bucks, because of those key ingredients. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. JENETTA?
So, having said that, you've got your structure and your language and your delivery, and that's off pat. I've noticed that a lot of people then find it very, well, I certainly did. I had to have your guidance on this. Very difficult to suddenly step into that place of saying, I want to be paid. It almost feels cheeky. It almost feels that you don't deserve it. A lot of people sit there going, do I really deserve to be paid? I haven't been paid before. How would you guide people to step over that great divide?
I think this is where there's a beautiful difference between British people and American people, right? I often find what you describe, JENETTA, with a lot of British people, and American people don't seem to have that challenge as much, although I'm not saying all American people that's the case. For me, it's a mindset thing. And this is how I advise people, you know, JENETTA, when I've spoken and work with you, and I work with other experts in the space. You've invested a lot of time, effort, and money to get where you are today with your expertise. Now, the fact that you're bolting on speaking doesn't suddenly negate that fact that you've invested a lot of time and money and expertise to become where you are. If what you have to share is solving a problem, is impacting people's lives, therefore there should be a commercial return, just like anything else. This is where lawyers have got it right. And love them or hate them, lawyers, solicitors, they know that they've invested so much of their time to pass the bar that there needs to be a commercial return for the time and money invested, so they can get something back from it. Now, of course, there's pro bono and stuff like that. So that's why when they're billing, in their mind, they're well aware of the time invested. That is something that's often lost in certain fields because it's a field of service. So therefore, you don't actually estimate how much time you've invested to get to where you are. Therefore, you feel cheeky asking for money for it. But that's not the right mindset or approach. You've invested time, you invested money, sweat, right? And therefore, you should be compensated for it, just like anything else. So if you take that same approach that lawyers take or solicitors take, knowing how much time they've invested in it and going, hey, I want a commercial return on that, you will shift your mindset. Now, please remember, it doesn't always have to be thousands or millions, right? You can start small. One of our clients, she never does any free gigs now, but that doesn't mean she doesn't get paid. She gets paid lots of money either. She, for example, what she'll do now is she'll pick up when she gets the call or the message about speaking, the first question she goes is, what's your budget? Sometimes it's in the thousands and sometimes it's £150 or $200. And then it's a decision if you want to take it for that fee. And she'll do it sometimes for 200 and sometimes for 2000 and sometimes she'll do it for more. The key is she completely gets the value she brings to the stage, which is why she goes, I'm not willing to do it for free anymore. It's the same with what the people that are struggling with it, JENETTA, that you asked about. How much time, effort, and money have you invested? Are you bringing something to the stage that's going to have massive value, that's going to solve a problem, therefore you would get paid for it? The answer is yes. Start charging. Start small if you're not comfortable. Start with $100, right? $200, then add a zero, then add another zero, and then go from there. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I think that is the big thing is, for me, it was when I was able to take that step forward and actually say, so what is your budget? It
Right.
makes a big difference, because most people will go into that space waiting for the person to say, well, you know, we can pay you, we can't pay you. And if they don't say anything, well, they're not paying me. But when you can boldly step forward and say, well, what is your budget? Do you have a budget? What is your budget? And even negotiate. I mean, you can say, well, you know, I've got to travel this far, and can you stretch that a little bit? Because I think what I have to say has value.
Exactly. And it's standing by that. Also, knowing where you are in the journey is important, right? I think that's a key thing. So, you know, we recently interviewed on one of my podcasts a guy, and he charges $250,000. That's his fee for keynote. And we asked him, how did you get to that point? And he said, well, first things first, I did over 200 free speaking gigs, right? Then I started to build my name up as a brand. And once I got my name to a certain level as a brand, that gave me permission to then stay and grow my fee up and up and up and up. And that's why now he charges $250,000, because what he brings with him is a huge brand. And that's where people can overestimate what they're worth. Now, of course, we can't argue with that. Like, your self-worth is priceless. No one can pay you for your self-worth. But the value that you bring to the stage, that is what you get paid for. Do you see? And I think that's quite an important distinction. So please understand that you get paid indirectly to the value that you bring to the stage, which is, again, knowing what problem you're solving, how many people, in the sense you're following, your size. That's a big part of it, because also people book people because they're communities now, not just for their expertise. So that's another thing for the equation as well.
Thank you, Elliott. I just wanted to address something that you mentioned earlier. You had mentioned respect for the audience. And I also would like you to address, when you have a paid speaking gig, what about when the audience is disrespectful to you, whether they're on their devices or they're not listening or they're talking? What are your thoughts? Should you call them out on it?
Yes.
Should you stand there and wait? What do you do?
I think, again, it depends on your style as a speaker, right? But I think, look, if I'm a paid speaker, part of my job is to manage that audience, is to handle the audience. So if they're on the devices, there's various ways you do that. And I've called people out. Yes, I've called the audience out. And I think as a speaker, you learn to what is known as read the room, right? And if too many people are on devices, well, what's going on? Is there some news you need to be aware of? Has something gone down? Or is your content not very good? Are you boring? Right? I mean, that's not something you would do immediately. But on the spot, you're getting paid by the conference, by the event organizer, because you're expected to bring a certain level of engagement, expertise, entertainment that keeps them engaged. Now, if for some reason they're forced to be there and they really don't want to be there, then you have to learn room facilitation, which means how you enroll people back, how you captivate people, how you engage people. Now, if you do that properly from the start, they won't be on devices. The other way, of course, to do it is, if it happens here and there, is you call it out in a funny way, and then people won't want to be caught out like that. But absolutely should call the audience out. The amount of times I start speaking opportunity and, you know, they might not give me the response I want or the energy back, And I'm like, look, I'm going to give you 100% here. Are you going to give me 100%? And they go, yes, yes. And I'm like, well, that isn't 100%. What does 100% yes sound like? And that's, you've got to have that certainty in yourself that you're okay to call out the audience. Now, what a lot of people can get wrong is they call out the audience in an antagonizing way. And therefore the audience back gets up. And then they almost energetically group together and come at you. That's very hard to unmanage. But if you do it properly, there's various what we call faculty that you could go into, archetypes, not faculty, archetypes that you step into that allow you to manage the room in a way that wins people over. And that way you will gain the respect. But absolutely call them out, but learn how to do it is the key here.
Excellent. Thank you. I just wanted to add, I actually had that experience. I wasn't in front of a huge group of people, but I was in front of a board, and I was presenting a $5 million proposal. And the people right in front of me I'd never met with before. They were decades younger than I am, and they had their phones out. So when I got up to present, they were in their phones. And I just stood there. And I could feel the sweat coming down my back because everyone except for them were looking at me. And I just stood there. And when the one guy looked up and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "I was waiting for your undivided attention because I'm sure what I'm going to present is going to have a big impact on your organization. And I know you wouldn't want to miss it." And I just smiled.
Yeah,
So,
that's the other way of doing it. You hold your space. You hold your certainty. Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Did you win it? Did you win the proposal?
no, we didn't win the proposal, but it was not because of that. We actually had further conversations and discussions, but our proposal was off the mark for what they're looking for.
There you go.
I think also when it comes to dealing with those objections, it's about setting up almost role play where you practice it, because it's not always easy to get through that actual talk and survive it in those early days. So practicing that heckling and having people question you or be on their phones and how you respond is very powerful. And I know it's one of the things you do, Elliott, with a lot of your training too.
Yeah, and this is really important because it's creating that memory bank of responses, or at least knowing how to manage the feeling of being heckled. So yes, some of the training we do when we do the archetype training, we really look at that, and we set up an environment that you're fired at, a bit like journalists get fired at, or you fire at. And learning how to manage your emotions through that is actually what keeps you graceful. Having done that myself and handled hecklers myself, it's the recall that allows you to do that. Again, one of our members that work with us, nothing happened with her for 2 years, but then 2 years later, someone threw a heckle at her. And because we trained her, she's able to recall it, handle it, squash it, and then carry on. And yeah, it's really about that unconscious memory. It's the cognitive rehearsal that's really key. And that's what's important when you're dealing with that.
Yeah,
thank you, Ellie. While I have you on Spotlight, I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. In my corporate career that I retired from, we used a lot of PowerPoint slides, and then we were told no more PowerPoint slides. We were told no more PowerPoint slides, and to just speak vicariously from your head. What's the best way to do it now when you're presenting to people? Should you have some type of visuals or audio?
Yeah. So the thing is, you want to encompass as much of the audience as possible. So you got your visuals, the visual learners, you got your kinesthetic learners who learn from feeling and touching, and then you've got your auditory learners, the guys that listen, right? So the key is to have a good balance of everything: touch, feel, visual, and they can hear. So obviously, as a speaker, they're going to listen to you. The key is with PowerPoint is it's got to magnify, not replace the talk. And what a lot of people do is they literally rely on the presentation to be the talk. And on the contrary, the talk just has to aid or prompt bits for you as the speaker and magnify things of the talk. So, for example, just only a few weeks ago, I went up north to do a talk here about, present with authority. And the guy called me up and he goes, listen, Elliot, I might be wrong here, but I'm looking at your slides and there's very few slides and I'm just a bit concerned. And I had to explain. I said, listen, I don't know what speakers you had before, but my content comes from speaking, not slides. The slides are just an aid. You've got to be able to do the talk with or without slides. That's the deal. If you can't do it without slides, you're too reliant on them. So to answer your question, slides simply magnify what you're saying. So you only add a slide if it's going to help visually make a point. Obviously, you use slides when you're selling something because then people are processing what you're selling. But if you're too reliant on the slides and they're dominating the talk, you need to get rid of the slides. That's what I would say about that.
So much. And also just to follow up about the slides, how many times have we been in a presentation and you see the speaker turning around and reading from the slides?
That's a no. That's awful. You know, if I wanted to read the slides, just send me a copy of it. I didn't come here to see you read the slides. It's terrible. It's terrible practice. Definitely won't get paid for that, I tell you.
Thank you.
It's become more and more of an art, really. Whereas before it was kind of boringly mandatory, it's become an art and as you say, complementary. You know, Elliot, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, as much as nowadays it's about getting out there and getting paid and doing as much as you can to be seen and heard so that you get that reputation, when's the point that you would say one would reach out to an agent and why?
I had this conversation a lot. So look, I think the point you reach out to an agent is when you're really busy, not when you're starting out. Because what a lot of agents want you to be is in demand, because then they know that they can use their relationships to book you and also use your current relationships to get you rebooked. If you're just starting out and your calendar's clear, an agent's not interested because they're like, well, you haven't really proven that you can cut you can cut it with the best, or that you're actually a speaker. So the time to seek out an agent is when you're really busy. Now, it depends on the agency. There's agencies that do all kinds. There's agencies that call themselves an agency, but they're a bureau. And a bureau really operates on mass numbers, knowing that some point a client will come in and they can get you a talk. But bureaus still rely on the 80-20 rule, that 20% of their speakers are going to get their 80% of the work. So they pretty much focus on that 20%, and here and there, every now and then, someone will get them a different speaker, will get them a different speaking opportunity. So again, with bureaus, anytime's a good time, but I wouldn't build my speaking business around them. Agents, it's when you're busy, right? And a manager is when with a manager, you're going to hand over a big chunk of your business. So, and your life. And so a manager really has to believe in you as a person and where you can go globally. And you've got to have that kind of stardom around you, or you're building that stardom. And that's why really they would take like 25% of everything, because you're really handing over a chunk of your life. But when you're starting out, I would go out and get your own speaking opportunities as much as you can. I would negotiate your own fees and just have a contract that you understand that you can send to them. That would be my approach to all of these topics.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
And you have a tagline that I'd love for you to share a little bit more with our audience. I'm going to let them see what it is now. Be more giraffe. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's actually the name of my 5th book, How to Stand Out, Speak, and Be More Giraffe. But also what happened was during lockdown, obviously things got a bit shaken up, and I was talking to my content manager at the time, and we did some research with our database, or in America, database, and they basically came back with all these things. I want to stand out. I want to be heard. I want to rise above the noise, etc., etc. And next to me, I can't quite see her right now. Where are you? Anyway, so next to me was a giraffe. And it's a giraffe that my wife brought back from Rwanda. And so I went, you know what? People want to be more giraffe. And I held the giraffe to the camera. And then my content manager at the time went, yes, that's it. That's our marketing messaging. That's our tagline. People want to be more giraffe. And that's where it all started. And then, so literally, we started the whole stand out. So be seen, be heard, be more giraffe, right? Stand out for the right reasons, stick your neck out for the right reasons, be seen, be heard, be more giraffe. And it really started to take off. And then that was also the time when Clubhouse came along and I got known as the Be More Giraffe guy. And more that tagline became embedded in our marketing. And now, although there's a fun aspect to it, it's got very serious messaging underneath it. And people are really resonating with that. They really get it. They really like it. A lot of people like giraffes. And they get the whole standing above the rest, rising above the rest, being more giraffe, taking risks, right? And that's what Be More Giraffe stands for. And so much so, I wrote the book about it. There you go. So that's where the Be More Giraffe started. And it's carried on for the last, coming into its third year now. I mean, the book I'm talking about was shortlisted for the Business Book Awards here in the UK. So clearly there's something strong enough for it to get attention from some really senior peers who are incredible authors as well. And that's where Be More Giraffe came from.
That is genius. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And as we close out, I'd love for you to let our audience know, how can they hire you? How can they work with you? And what does that process look like?
Yeah, I think best thing to do is there's a Calendly link below. It's calendly.com, Speaker Express, and then let's connect call. We have a range of services and ways of working. We have masterminds. Obviously, I do one-to-ones. I do have some online tools as well. So it really depends what's right for you, which is why I'd rather have a conversation to find out what's right for you and then go from there. Because, often you can go like, here's this and here's that, and it might not be quite right. And what I want to do is really connect with you and get to understand what your journey is, and then to put the right solution in front of you. And hopefully it's the right thing for you. And if not, I know a lot of people that it could be right. I know it says here, let's talk book a lot. That should say book a slot. That is my fault. So yes, let's connect. Just click on the Calendly or check out the website. Reach out to me. You can book a call in through the website as well. I am on LinkedIn under Elliott K if you're a LinkedIn kind of person. And I am also on TikTok if you want to see some more videos of me on I am Elliott K. But really, let's have a conversation. I'm keen to connect with people. I like to connect with people before doing anything else because I get a feel, you get a feel for me, and we can go from there. So just grab that Calendly, book in a call, let's have a conversation, and let's go from there. That will be the best way, I feel.
I like that, though. Book a lot and book a slot.
I like it. Either way, I was subconsciously getting a lot of bookings coming in.
Yes, they're coming your way for sure. Well, thank you so much for a brilliant interview and sharing this really valuable content that's relevant and appropriate for so many people to get out of their own way and get out there and share their message.
Yeah, and be more giraffe.
Be more giraffe. Exactly. Well, thank you again. I hope you'll come back and see us on this or any of our other 25 weekly shows. We'd love to have you back.
I'd love to come back.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Elliott, as always, an honor and pleasure to have you here again. Let's chat soon.
Yes, let's do it. Lots of love.
Bye for now. JENETTA, we have to wrap up, so I'm going to spotlight you, and if you could share with our audience how you work with people and who should contact you.
Thank you, Dr. J. Anybody who wants to communicate from a place of clarity and certainty and specificity, put my teeth in, because so often there's an internal conflicting conversation going inside of us that stops us from being able to be clear and certain and specific about anything. And of course, talking about speaking today is very much a part of that. But before even getting to speaking, being able to speak to family members, to friends, to socialize with ease, to be able to work through any challenges within work, and especially on my side with what I've been through, working with parents and teens and children, anytime you're finding that conversation comes from a place of fearfulness of outcomes, fearfulness of being judged, anytime that happens and you're treading on eggshells, you're bound to find that the most inappropriate words come out your mouth. So if you identify with this and know that, gee, I would really love to be able to clearly and specifically and succinctly talk in the most authentic way, be able to speak my truth in such a way that it comes from my heart rather than from judgment and fear, then I invite you, because these are very powerful skills in the epiphany process. If you'd like to chat to me, I'm very approachable at theepiphanyprocess.com. And let's put together, that's amazing, I've got the cockerels outside agreeing with me. But let's put together a talk, a chat together. You can contact me and also contact me on Calendly through that website. Also, for anybody who'd like to know more about World Jenny's Day, get involved, be a part of what we're doing, introduce other people who could be a part of what we're doing. That's worldjennysday.com. And I'm also very approachable there. You'll get me almost immediately. And I'd love to chat with you some more. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Janetta. I love the sound effects too. It's really cool.
It could
All
be a
right.
lion, but no.
It sounds great. Just a couple things before we go. I want to let our audience know that yesterday, Janetta filmed a show with me. It was our first episode. I'm going to bring up the graphic. The name of the show is The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor, the TV and radio show. So, Janetta, can you just share with our audience which of the characters on the book cover represents you?
Ah, yes. Well, the one on the bottom left-hand corner is a white lion. She's a white leucistic lion, a leucistic albino or albino, as we say in UK. And the reason she's a leucistic is because she still has some of her markings, even though she's white. And she's got blue eyes, or whatever eyes that come with that species. And so because I'm from Africa and I'm pretty pale and I have these blue eyes, we chose the white lioness as my character in this children's book, and such an honor and pleasure. And then we thought, what name could we give this very special lioness? And I came up with a Swahili name, which is Sikaliza. And in Swahili, that means to listen. And the whole book is about helping parents and children to listen differently in new ways that are very empowered. So for me, this was a no-brainer to have the lioness there. You're muted. Dr. JACALYN, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. So please do go over to our YouTube channel. If you can go to USA Global TV and subscribe, you can actually watch the show there. And each week we will feature a different animal character. It represents a real person who's an elevated listener. They've been trained in how to listen at an elevated level, as Janetta has. And Janetta, another announcement. I'm going to put up the slide and let you take it away from here. What would you like to share about this?
Oh, wow. Talking heads. From next week, Wednesday at 1 p.m. EDT, I will be joining the group of USA Global TV presenters who own their own show and present their own show. And so I'll be part of the Talking Heads tribe team. And I'm so looking forward to creating some amazing conversations from there. And such an honor to be invited to become a talking head. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN.
Thank you very much. And we're thrilled to have you. And as Janetta mentioned, she will have her own show for 30 minutes. And Janetta, any idea what you'll be presenting on for your first playlist of 6 lessons?
No, I am going to keep everybody in suspense. Tune in next week. Do not miss it.
All right. That's Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, which is 8 p.m. your time, yes?
Yes, 3 p.m. UK time.
Okay,
I'm having to
fantastic.
think I'm 3 time zones at the moment. It's UK and UK, BST.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.
And you, and speak soon, and to all our listeners and viewers out there, just love sharing and being with you. We would love some interaction with you in the future. I'd love to set that up, and see you this time next week as well. Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye for now. Well, thank you so much, whether you're watching or listening live or on the replay. It doesn't matter. We're just thrilled to have you. I just have a couple of announcements to make. So, if you haven't heard, I've actually published 2 books, 2 #1 Amazon bestsellers. This is the most recent, Adversity to Awesome. And this book is 12 chapters long. Each chapter represents a different person whom I've interviewed. So, the first chapter is my chapter about something that happened to me decades ago that I kept as a secret and didn't want to talk about. And I've put it out there in the effort to help someone else come forward. So if you would like to pick up a copy of that, you can get the ebook or you can get the paperback, and you can read about stories of real life things that people have overcome that you would be shocked that they've overcome them. And then not only that, how they have made themselves a success by helping other people and sharing their stories. So we've got, as I mentioned, 12 people, just to think of a few. We've got Madeline Chan, Roland Friedel, Robert J. Moore, Frank Sunius, Teuda Avduli, and so many more. So please do pick up this book. And also my first book, which is also an Amazon #1 bestseller. It's hard to see because it's green. I'm on a green screen, so I'll show the graphic, but it's called Behind the Green Screen. And it's the story of how I left my corporate career and why, and started this platform with no experience whatsoever. And I give you lists and all kinds of tips if you want to start a live broadcasting platform. So just to be clear, our show is a live broadcast, which means it's scheduled in advance. We have 26 shows a week. Everything's scheduled. Every show has its own backgrounds and graphics, as opposed to a podcast, which is typically one visual, one graphic, one theme, and then various guests. So we become a podcast after we're a live broadcast. So this is what the 2 books look like. And you can go over to the Amazon page for Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and you can pick them up there. Okay, thank you again for being here. We're going to sign off as our next show is coming up. We have a full day of broadcasting, 8 shows today. So I look forward to catching you on one of the next ones. Thank you again. Bye, JENETTA. Bye, Elliott.